Today on Friday, which is a really good turnout. My name is Andrea Love, and I'm one of the co-presidents of Students for Gender Equality, which is one of the sponsors of today's event. We're an RSO that's from the University of Arkansas, obviously, that focuses on issues of gender equity and strives towards stimulating conversations on issues that intersect with gender, such as healthcare, economic equality, LGBTQ issues, social and environmental justice, global warming, racism, and sexism. So first we're going to show a short film called Weathering Change, and then I'll introduce our panelists and we'll start the conversation. Okay, this is really loud. We didn't do the volume check. We don't hear that.
Before it used to rain season, but now it doesn't. Of course I'm worried. Because of the lack of rainfall, everything we built in life. No matter what we do, the seeds are just dying. We were not getting enough food from farming. Something had to be done. We needed to feed the family. So my husband left to work outside of the village. There are many families that have to struggle like this. Many men have gone away to work and the women take on all the responsibility. I have to look after the cattle, work in the field, and grow vegetables by myself. So obviously it's difficult. Before I was married, I didn't have enough to eat or wear. In the winter I slept with a thin shawl wrapped around me. I don't have good memories. For someone who has struggled so much, such memories are hard to recollect. Because I suffered like that, I don't want my children to go through the same thing. If I die, there is nothing I can do, but as long as I'm alive, I will continue to struggle for them. The children help me cook during the mornings and evenings, but they have to go to school. I can't keep them at home and ask them to work. I don't want my kids' lives to be as hard as mine. So while it's difficult, I'm sending them to school. I think their future will be bright once they have good education. If they decide to stay and farm, there is little hope. And without this river, where do we get the water?
Eso viene del hielo.
It comes from the ice. Without water, we cannot live. Not plants, not animals, not us. When I was a girl, the sun caps were really white with a lot of ice. Now you can see the ice is not there. Don't worry that over time we might not even have water to drink. There is no other place to get drinking water. Little by little it's going away. It's melting. What's going to happen to my children as they grow up? Sometimes I worry about this. We'll get older and die. The children who are just born, they are the ones who are going to suffer these coming changes. I don't know what's going to happen when the ice is gone. I'm from agriculture. There, we would walk the land, plant the crops. I really like it there. I like milking my cow and drinking it straight away. Before, there was corn, enough to eat, but not anymore. The grass is drying up and dying. That's why we are here. We were excited to come here. We wanted to improve our lives. I didn't imagine suffering like this. Sometimes people will say, why don't you install electricity or water? But the poor sometimes can't afford it. When the water truck people would call out, I had to run down carrying the baby or just leaking. Because if not, we wouldn't get water. I needed water to cook with, and I had to wash my children with just a little. Difficult to raise babies with that. Just this year, more people are coming. Over there, and over there. They are building houses. Before, there was nothing. They are going to take over the hills, and they are going to need water and electricity. My husband used to want more children, but not anymore. So, to protect myself, every 3 months I take an injection. I'm happy when I'm on birth control. Before, I wasn't using anything. I was always scared to get pregnant again. If I had more children, what would I do? What would they need? And they would need education. My husband works in the government later. How can I work with 4 little boys? Women struggle at home. Not to lack water in the house. That's what I worry about. And for all of us to be healthy and happy. Today, any problem we have is linked to the changing weather. We had a good standard of life growing up. My father used to get 500 to 600 kilos per harvest, but now we can barely get 100. Even though the land is green, it's not fruitful. It has never been like this. Because it used to rain seasonally, we had our usual harvest. But now, because of the erratic weather, with the rain not following seasonal patterns, the harvest has decreased and is affecting our livelihood. The only way we can raise our kids is from the land. If the land fails to produce, there isn't enough to feed them. I get really sad when they go hungry. We have to plant trees and vegetation to stop erosion. We have to create irrigation so that water doesn't destroy the crops. We have to work and achieve change for ourselves. But work alone isn't the answer. For example, in one household, there can be 10 or 8 children. I'm a volunteer at the health center. I feed hungry children and teach family planning to their parents. When they have children every year, it hurts them. When they use contraception and space births every 3 to 5 years, the mothers get stronger. And their children also grow up with the needed strength and care. Due to climate change, mothers have understood that spacing their children is in their own best interest. A woman's burden is great. She doesn't have a break from morning to night. She works and carries a heavy load. A woman's life is hard, and climate change is making it harder.
Okay, so we have several panelists today that I'm going to introduce, and then Naomi's going to give a presentation. Yeah, okay. So our first panelist on the end is Joanna. Joanna works and now volunteers at the Applied Sustainability Center on campus, where she had a leadership role in developing a grant-funded program to empower 16 Arkansas cities to develop strategic energy plans, including energy efficiency and renewable energy initiatives. Joanna is currently a doctoral student in the Environmental Dynamics program at the U of A, with an emphasis on local and international community resilience planning, and she teaches nutrition and cooking classes in her community as part of the Cooking Matters National Initiative. Our next panelist is Naomi Brodkey, who is the program assistant for the Global Population and the Environment program at the Sierra Club. Before joining the Global Population and the Environment program, Naomi was involved with various health and environmental initiatives at the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health at the WHO, Save the Children, the White Ribbon Alliance for Safe Motherhood, and the National Environmental Education Foundation. Naomi has a Master's of Science in Global Health from Maastricht University, and which focused research in environmental health, and a BA in Sociology and Social Studies with Medicine from McGill University. And she is visiting us today from Washington, D.C., so I want to give her a very special welcome to Arkansas. And finally, Jody Nimmo is the other co-president of Students for Gender Equality and a student in Sociology at the University. So we're going to show a presentation about similar topics to the film discussed, just with some more facts and tables and stuff. And then we're going to let our panelists sort of react to the film and talk about their relation to it, and then we'll open up for questions. Thank you. Yeah.
So, as Andrea said, I'm Naomi Brodkey, and I work in the Global Population and Environment program at the Sierra Club. Just for a show of hands, how many of you have heard of the Sierra Club? Great. So, the Sierra Club is the country's oldest and largest environmental organization. We are a membership-based organization. We currently have 2.1 million members and supporters, with a range of topics, and some of them you'll learn about in the following presentations, but we have local groups and chapters across all 50 states and some parts of Canada. So we're going to start a little pop quiz. Do you know what today's world population is? Anyone shout it out?
7 billion.
7 billion? Any other ideas? That's close. We're actually just over 7 billion. On Halloween of 2011 is when we reached 7 billion. Does anyone know how long it took to get from 6 to 7? Any ideas?
20 years.
20 years? 12. Yeah, it took just about 12 years to get from 6 to 7 billion. Do you all know what the 3 most populous countries in the world are in order?
China, India, and Brazil.
Okay. Thought someone else wanted to say something.
It was India first.
India's first, you think? Any other ideas about what the 3 might be? No? Y'all are a quiet bunch. Come on. Yeah?
China, India, and the United States.
China, India, and the United States. What percentage of the U.S. federal budget is spent on international aid? 0.02. Less than 1%. And do you know what the U.S. comprises what of percentage of the world's population and what percentage of the world's energy is consumed? Anyone?
I know it's high.
High?
Higher
Which one is high?
Energy.
The energy consumed. Okay, so we are 5% of the world's population, and we consume 25% of the world's energy. Do you know, on average, what percentage of a woman's day is spent gathering water in the developing world? 25. Any other thoughts? Not fair. 50%. Actually, just over 25% of a woman's day in many parts of the world is spent gathering water. And any of you remember how long it took for you to go to the well this morning and fetch water? Anybody? No? Because you turned on the tap and it was pouring out in the temperature that you wanted it to be? What developed country has the highest rate of teen pregnancy? The U.S. Not something to be super proud of. But what would be the single biggest factor determining how many children a woman might have?
Access to birth control.
That's one. Any other ideas? Education, what you all are here for at the University of Arkansas. So the Sierra Club's Global Population and Environment Program has 4 basic concentrations, if you can call it that. One is access to family planning. We advocate for all women everywhere in the world to have access to the ability to choose if, when, and how many children to have. 2 is women's rights, so we focus on access to education, women's empowerment through economic opportunities and incentives. Reducing wasteful resource consumption. So as you already saw, we use 25% of the world's energy, so we're going to try and reduce that. And finally is empowering youth. All of you in this room, no matter what your age is, because you can be youth even if you're older, being involved with the organization and being change agents. You might know at the moment that there's a really important family planning conference in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and there's actually a really large contingent of youth, and they are super important to the process of negotiations, both in the UN, but in terms of decision making. So our work is rooted, it's a 40-plus-year-old organization, but as of 1994, the International Conference on Population and Development, which was held in Cairo, Egypt, set out the following, that all couples and individuals have the right to determine freely and responsibly the number, spacing, and timing of their children, and to have the information and means to do so. And 179 countries signed on to this agreement. And 1994 to next year we'll be celebrating 20 years of this agreement, and it still drives a lot of our work. Can anyone talk about what unmet need might mean? Any thoughts? You all have puzzled looks on your faces. Come on, I'm not going to bite.
Not having access to what you need.
Okay, thank you. And specifically in this context? Education. Family planning. So we would define unmet needs as women who've expressed a desire to plan the timing and spacing of their children but don't have the means to do so. And currently, 222 million women in the world have asked or expressed a need for access to family planning but can't for any number of reasons, which might be education, it might be cultural, it might be their role in society, it might be the role they have in their family, it might be their age. There are so many reasons. They might go to the health clinic and the clinic is out of whatever their desired needs is, even if they've walked days to get there or hours or whatever, sometimes with and without the permission of their partners. But as we've just seen in the video, family planning and the number of children that we have has a direct impact in some ways on climate change. So we try to battle climate change. Can anyone tell me what adaptation and mitigation might mean with regards to climate change? Another brave person? No?
I mean, adaptation, you're just like adapting to the environment, but then mitigation, yeah.
Say that again?
Adaptation, you're adapting to how the climate's changing, obviously, like you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over. But then I don't know what
The mitigation?
Yeah, no idea.
Okay. Any other thoughts on what mitigation might mean? No? Alright, well, an adjustment in natural or human systems in response to actual or expected climatic stimuli or their effects, which moderates harm or exploits beneficial opportunities. So adapting to the current situation, such as building reinforcement walls so that when there's heavy rain, it doesn't cause too much erosion. Mitigation is the anthropogenic intervention to reduce the sources or enhance the sinks of greenhouse gases, such as using alternative energy, so riding a bike instead of driving your car, or having wind power or solar power rather than natural gas. And as you also saw in the video, women bear the brunt of climate change. In fact, the changes that are happening to the environment are leading to malaria being present in parts of the world that it's never been before. But because of hormonal changes, women are disproportionately at risk for getting malaria, especially while they're pregnant. But as collectors of firewood and food and water, with climate change and the impact on those three, so fuel, food, and water, there's less of each, whether that's because women are deforesting, cutting down wood in order to have firewood, or because climate change is leading to less agricultural yields, or whether that's because water, which there isn't a lot of, which is potable, is being used for other uses or is becoming dirty and therefore not drinkable. And women are resource managers, all tied to what I just said. So women are the ones that are agricultural producers in much of their communities. In much of the world, 80% of women are farmers, but own less than 10% of land on which they do farm. So climate change means that they may not have the ability to decide how much food they're actually putting on the table. And when negotiations happen and they're not part of that conversation, then they have even less control over what's happening to the land and how it's being used. But, as we already said, education has a direct inverse relationship to the number of children a woman might have over her life. So, the more education a woman gets, the more likely she's to have fewer children, and the children that she's going to have tend to be healthier and to live longer, and her own health is also higher, and so she's better able to take care of her children as well. So this is a really great representation of areas in the world where the amount of education is linked to the number of children a woman would have. So, going back to some of the earlier things I was saying regarding climate change and women and birth control and the number of children that a woman would have, two professors at Princeton University named Sakala and Sakala in 2006 did this research talking about the different things that are impacting climate change, carbon emissions. And another researcher by the name of Neil O'Brien realized that if we were able to meet the unmet need for family planning, the 222 million women in the world who said that they want to be able to space and plan for their pregnancies, we would actually reduce one of those bars, which is equivalent to 1 billion tons a year of carbon emissions. It's a lot. So we've talked a lot about family planning so far, and populations, but obviously it's a two-sided coin. One is consumption and one is population growth. So I wonder if anyone can tell me what they think the current fertility rate is in the US, England, and France. Anybody? Come on. Any ideas?
Number. Any number.
Big out of a hat. 1 through 10. No?
75%?
Not percentage, but actual numbers.
Oh.
2.
2 for which country?
UK.
Okay. Any other ideas? No? Okay, I'll just tell you then. The US